Hi everybody, my name is MsRheyRhey and welcome back to Game Design Fridays. Now, I didn't get a lot of stuff done this week because of stuff, but I did get pretty good important things kind of out of the way. Let's just get into it here. Okay. That is the player character, so let's start with the player character then. I really didn't change much for him. I basically, is it in here? Oh yeah, I made folders for all my scripts so I could be more organized, so I'd get less lost. It's really great. So yes, player controller is in here. I didn't do much to the player controller. I basically just made him able to run. Can I change this to 200 so you guys can read without having to squint like I do all of the time? I basically made, I think I went over this last week, so I'm not going to go over everything all over again, but I basically made another float variable called run speed, and let me see where that is. So yes, I made it in the update function so it will work through every frame. I basically made run speed equal move speed times 1.8, so it's not necessarily going twice as fast, but like a little more than just, you know, not a power walk. And I made it to where the run will be on the click button. So you just press normal left, so you just click the mouse and will hold the mouse and you're running. So that's what it is in here. If you have the input is any kind of, like, if you have to push any kind of key like space to jump or WASD to move, things like that, there is a specific input for the mouse button, and it would be get button down, and it is labeled in numbers. So 0 is your left mouse, 2 is, I believe 2 is your right, 3 is your wheel mouse, and then any other numbers is if you have fancier mouse buttons. I don't, because I'm basic. So when you press down on the mouse button, your move speed will now equal your run speed. And then when it's lifted, it will go back, your move speed will be back to whatever your normal move speed was in the beginning. I'm just not the best at coding, but the simplest way to read it for me was, okay, the move speed isn't it? Because when you press the button down, the move speed now equals the run speed. If I didn't move it back to dividing it by whatever the run speed was at the beginning, the move speed would just keep going up in number. So instead, let me show you, and let me move myself in here so you can see. Can you see that all that well? Let me, 1 second. Nope, never mind. Okay, so maybe I can just, that kind of better. Okay, you can kind of see the move speed that, okay, you can kind of see the move speed that's like right here, and it's set at 4. So let me play. Oh, I moved the camera too, by the way. Well, it's a little jumpier than it was before, but when I press click, now it's at 7.2. And when I let it go, it's back at 4. Why is the camera so jumpy? What did I do to it? I'll figure that out later. But the thing was, if I had just, let's see, let's get rid of, let's comment this out just for a little bit so I can show you and save that. Yeah, the whole slashes and asterisks are a really good way to comment out a chunk of it, of the code, so you can like test things out, and when Unity is playing, it'll see that, and it won't play whatever code is past this unless you have the I'm pointing at my screen like you can see it. It will see this right here and say, okay, nothing below that, it should be done, and then it won't stop until you see this right here, the asterisk / yes. So it's like, okay, ignore this for now. Anyway, getting rid of that, keep your eye on the move speed. So it's set to 4 originally, and then, oh, you're less clunky now. Okay, if I put get button down now, I've already let go of the mouse button, but it's still set at 7.2. If I click it again, it goes to 12.96, and that's just my speed now. That's gonna be difficult to deal with for the game I have in mind. So dividing the new move speed by what the run speed was, multiplying it by in the beginning, is the best way to get it back to a normal, what I consider a walking pace in this game. So let's save that so I don't have to do that all over again. Let me see, is run speed, is that the only place I have run speed? I was gonna set it in the move function itself, but it was getting complicated, so I just put it back in update, so it'll monitor whether it's running or moving just with each frame. So that is what I did there with the player character. Let me get to the main camera. One thing that I majorly did was I got rid of the what did I name it in here? I think it's in here. Camera to mouse. So that was this is the script I removed from the main camera. It was supposed to follow, the camera was supposed to follow the mouse wherever it went. This script, and then the default camera script that I made, was meant to look at the player no matter what. So this script made the camera focus on the player. The camera to mouse script made it to where I could focus anything around the player. But I removed that because it was getting, as I was moving, I was getting lost of where my own character was. So I just removed it. It's better that way. The only change I made to the main camera scripting was that I updated this from update to late update. And what that did is it made, let me just kind of show you here. So what it is, these kinds of methods or functions, they have a hierarchy, like a priority of which one comes first. So in scripting, it would be, well, I mean, I can talk about that at a different time. I'm not here to educate you. I'd like to, but it's also, let's just know late update is later after the update function. But these all still all of these scripts still run at the same time. So if everything is on this update function, that's a lot for the Unity editor to process all at once. So that's why there's things like update, there's fixed update, there's late update. There's certain methods that were like just, where is it? For the sheep, there's a function just called on trigger enter or on collision enter. So these functions only work when a collision or a trigger is detected. It's sort of like frame by frame, but it's more of a, it's more of like you don't know what's going on until someone kind of like grabs you and shakes you into back to reality sort of thing. It's a violent analogy, but right, so I sent this back to update that it was before. Let that sort of compile in here. And so you'll see movement. Oh, it's kind of harder to see right now. I think maybe because I got rid of the mouse to camera script, but it was it's kind of jaggedy when the character keeps moving. It was just kind of like stop and go know, stop motion sort of thing. What it did when I put it to late update is that it made the camera movements a lot smoother, which is good because this is sort of like the smooth follow sort of camera scripting that I found. So when changing it to late update, because the camera movement wasn't in that time bracket of everything else that was also in update, it was able to focus a lot more on how the camera moved at a later time. Like, you know, when you walk away from a project and then you come back to it, it's like a lot more fresh in your head. You're able to read it a little more clearly. That's sort of what the hierarchy in Unity, the Unity editor does. It if it's too bogged in one section, it gets confused. That's why certain games lag and things like that. But if you disperse it, it'll be a lot easier for it to follow. It will have like a consistency. It'll just be easier for the editor or whenever the game is built, and it'll be easier on your computer because it won't ruin your RAM on the computer, which is sort of like your motor memory for your computer. Okay, let me see. That was the camera. What else was in my update? Left mouse click. The editing for the stepping stool was not in any kind of scripting. It was just something that was bugging me at the time. Right, spawn points. So the most major thing I did this week for updating was that thank you, were these, let me go in here and you'll see this is a spawn point that I made for the falling tiles. I just made it look like this so I was able to see it while I was editing, and then I have it set, I'll show you in script because this was something I had to make completely new for this game. I had it set to where this whole night sky sort of material for the asset would disappear as soon as the game turned on, and then it would spawn the tile in from it, and if the tile that it is in here destroyed, it'll just spawn a new one within a certain amount of time. I have Yorkies, so my dogs like to bark. Let me go through the script to show you how I did it. So first I made a public bool called isTile, making sure that like the tile is there. I made a private, so when it's private it'll just be monitoring it within the script and it won't be monitoring it like through the editor or anything like that. I made a transform called spawn point, so it'll be just monitoring the placement within the game world. I made a public game object called spawn, so so in case I don't want this to just be about the floor tiles, if I want to add the stepping stool to it, if I want to add like the furniture or anything like that, I can just use this as a spawn point instead of like a tile spawn point. I made a renderer which will do anything. Will like shush phone. Why do I never remember to turn? Okay, that's too bad. I made it to where a renderer is anything like this sheep. The sheep part that you see is the mesh of the sheep. It's sort of like the cloaked blanket that makes it take a shape. So now the script will know to look for any kind of renderer, like a light or mesh renderer. And I made a public float for a countdown called spawn time. So this is what I was talking about for. This is called void awake. It's any time, I can't remember if it's the game or the scene, but anytime, I think it's the scene, anytime the scene turns on, when you're going through the list of levels, like from menu to first to second to third, is anytime the level, I believe, is like turned on, this void awake function is what starts. So once the level is awake, I have the spawn point equal the placement of the asset is the spawn point. So it would be game object. This when you put game object dot transform, it's saying the game object this component is attached to. So anytime you just put game object instead of like a specific game object, it's gonna take what you have this script attached to, and then the transform is just the placement of this game object. So that will be the spawn point. The renderer will equal this game object's mesh renderer. You have to get the component of the game object, and then in these little arrow brackets, you have to put what kind of renderer you want. There are other kinds of renderers, not just a mesh renderer, but I'm specifically looking for a mesh renderer right here. And if you want something specific in that mesh renderer, that's where this in here with the normal parentheses brackets is where you would put it. So if I wanted, let's see, if I wanted the materials or the light probes within this mesh renderer, I would have to go in here. I would want the mesh render, and I would have to put light, like in the Visual Studios gives me all of these options to put within the mesh render, but I don't want that right now, so I just want the mesh render itself. And then so awake happens before start, so it has to, so that is what the hierarchy, it goes awake, then start, then the updates, and then anything else in there in between. I'm probably not going to be using all of them because that would be excessive, but anyway, once the level actually starts, is not just awake, I have the renderer, the mesh renderer, I have it enabled to false. So that's sort of like, is it on, is it off sort of thing. Enabled means on or off. So I have it equal to false, so it would be off. I have the game object mySpawn, which if you don't put public on there, it's just automatically private. So this will just be looking for any kind of game object that I'm referencing within there that I say mySpawn equals. So, but mySpawn, the game object, will equal, and instantiate means like it will just, it's the spawn of what the editor does. It will instantiate the game object, the public game object I made a spawn, and in here you need a game object, the position you want the game object in, and the rotation you want the object in. That's sort of what, if you can read that, it says quaternion rotation. That's just where you want it in, how you want it rotated in your game world. So when you have the instantiate, you need to put the game object, which I put as the public game object spawn. I want it in the same transform position that the game object spawn point is actually in. So this square, its forward, sideways, and up rotation is exactly how I want whatever I spawned in there. That's the direction I want it to look in. And I want it also in the same rotation. So if, I know this one is a flat plane, but if it were like a cube, there is a forward to that cube, and so whatever that cube's forward would be, I want that whatever I'm spawning to be that same forward. And then so that is what the mySpawn game object will be monitoring, is whatever I have spawned in there. And then when you put the mySpawn.transform.parent, you are saying I want this mySpawn object to have a parent. It needs to be a child of something. And when you say child or parent within a game context, it would be like it would be sort of like in here, like with the sheep. It has a foot, it has 4 feet, it has a cube, and it's basically the subfolder within this object's main folder. So when I'm saying the spawn needs a parent, I don't want it to just be like itself in this hierarchy. It's for me, it's for organizational reasons. But also I'm gonna have a lot of tiles falling, so this will just be completely bogged down with repeats of tiles all the time. So if I have, like, I have the spawns in this folder, and if I play this, as soon as this works, all of these spawn points now have their own tiles as their subfolder. That's what I mean by parent and child. This is the child of this parent, which is the child of this parent. So this is like the grandparent to the tile that is just now spawned. So the spawn point will, the parent of this spawn point will be the game object, which you just saw was the sky black asset. So that way it's more organized and it can keep track of itself better. And in this one I have a fixed update, because I don't necessarily, fixed update is when you don't want it to necessarily monitor something at each frame, but for each frame kind of like see if it's there sort of thing. So in a fixed update I have if the object my spawn equals null, which means it's not monitored in the editor or in the game at all, if it's just gone. The bool, which is the binary true or false on here, will equal false. So that's why I have it as public, so I can monitor in the game whether it's it's checking itself to whether there's a tile there or not. It will equal false. I will have it in the console sort of debug program in here. I have it set to tell me that it is gone, and then I start a coroutine called spawn, which I will go down here now because I think this is a very short script, but it was very important to me to make. So when you make a coroutine, it's basically saying this is a to-do list you have to do in this order. And you start coroutines using an enumerator. I can't tell you what that specifically means. Maybe later when I do all of this. I made an enumerator called spawn, so that's why I did that. And it's making and looking for a parameter, which is a float I called t, which is because it's just for time. And so I have this spawn saying, okay, wait for seconds in real time. So like wait these real time seconds as these start, and then and then within this method there is a new game object called new spawn, which will equal the instantiation of my spawn to its spawn point position, so where the black square is, and its same rotation. It will just make another thing in the exact same place as it was before. And this new spawn's parent will equal, once again, the spawn point game object. And then, because this all has to be done, the game editor has these numbers because that's the list it has to go down to read things. Like, okay, 1 is done, now we have to do 2, now we have to do 3, now we have to do 4, things like that. So that's why you have to edit things in a certain order. So the game object has to spawn first before it can be a parent of the game object. And now, from what we have, the game object that this whole script is looking for, called mySpawn, will equal this new spawned object. And then I have it set in the console to tell me that this new spawned, or a tile, has returned to the game world. And then I have it set to check if this new my spawn is active within this hierarchy, meaning that it's present and you can see it in the new game world, is true. Then the bool is tile, meaning there is a tile present within the spawn point, is now true again. And so that is the spawn coroutine. So when isTile is false, it will start the spawn coroutine. And I have it, when you do this, there are many ways to say which coroutine you want. This is the one that worked best for me. I tried to do it another way, but it wouldn't read it. So when you have these quotation marks in there, you have to be very, very specific on how you type what is ever in there, because that is exactly how it will look for it. If I just put spawn with like a lowercase s, it wouldn't look for this specific coroutine because I have a capital S. It's that much of a stickler. But because I'm starting with coroutine spawn, it's asked, and I have a float parameter in there, it's going to use this spawn time as the parameter it's going to look for spawn, because I made this one say, okay, specifically look for float t. So spawn time will be float t in this, which I think I have it set to 5 seconds. So in 5 real-time seconds after a tile falls, a new one will spawn. And so then it will do that. It will start this coroutine. In 5 seconds, an object will spawn. It'll be the parent of this spawn point and all that, and everything will be set to true. But if I only set it to that, tiles would continue to spawn within the update. So it would just, once again, be like a never-ending list of tiles that I have to have fall. So once isTile does equal true, I have to stop this coroutine from constantly spawning in tile clones. Otherwise, yeah, it's just going to be bogged down. It will absolutely slow down your computer forever until you exit the game, which will also take a long time. So that's what it is. Once isTile is false, it will start a coroutine. Once it is true, it will stop the coroutine. And that's about it for that. What did I stop? Oh, yeah, no, that's fine. We don't need the lights or anything in the mesh renderer. So when you play it like this, you've seen from how I've played, the black places will now turn into the tiles that you're used to. It needs a, don't freeze on me. Okay, come on. Okay, so player can run, and you see once I do that, they still fall because that falling script was in the tile itself. But yeah, after 5 seconds, I won't put in a countdown there because that's just unnecessary work for me. But after 5 real-time seconds within the game, these tiles will spawn back. And that is pretty much, I think, all that I've done. This kind of has been a hell week for me outside of game development, so I didn't get a lot done this week. Hopefully next week will be better. Move the scripting, updated nav mesh to shape. Oh yeah, I just made them closer to the edge of the terrain, pretty much. The sheep was getting stuck in between there when the player was moving towards it, and it was trying to follow me. That's pretty much it for that. Nope, I think I explained everything that I've done this week to you guys. So if you made it this far, I make these very long videos and I try not to. I very, very much appreciate you sticking with me this far. I have no idea how much more scripting I have to do. I'm kind of getting to a point where I'm looking at everything, I'm like, okay, well, that works fine as intended. I'm probably gonna have to brainstorm to see how I can make this game more fun, because right now it's sort of just a get the key, go to the door game, and that's not fun. That could be, I'm brainstorming, and then I'll get back to you and I'll tell you what I got done next week. So thank you so much for watching. I very, very much appreciate it, and I will see all of you later. Have a great day.